Afternoon guys, it's Simon at Pulse Cinemas. Thank you for taking the time to sit down and watch this presentation on aspect ratios. It's nice and brief, it's just to give you a snapshot of how to produce all aspect ratios within the cinema installations that you are undergoing with your clients at the moment. So there's two main ways of doing so, with a zoom method and with an anamorphic lens. So we're going to cover both and how to calculate those. Just to ensure that obviously everything that you're doing on site is accurate and going to work when installing it with the customer. So let's get started. We're going to talk about different types of ratios. So you can see here we have 1:7:8 and we also have 2:4. So this is very, very common aspect ratios that you are being asked to produce within your cinema installations. Inevitably, it's good to give the client an idea of what they are actually going to look like on screen. So say, for example, you're having to put in a 16:9 ratio screen because the client doesn't want to maybe go to a projector with a zoom feature, or maybe doesn't want an anamorphic lens. Give them the visual side of things of what to expect. Always manage their expectations. This is what 16:9 or 1:7:8 ratio content is going to look like on your 1:7:8 ratio screen. It's going to be full screen, Mr. Customer. This is what 2.4 or 2.35 CinemaScope content is going to look like on your 16:9 or 1:7:8 ratio screen, Mr. Customer. So just manage their expectations in that way. Demonstrations at Pulse Cinemas are really effective for this as well. We have multiple rooms where we're able to demonstrate both types of formats in terms of 1:7:8 or 2.4. We also have zoom capabilities and anamorphics, so it can really kind of nail the perception of what your client wants and how to achieve this kind of end result. And obviously feel free to use the facility. It's here for you to and supportive customers. We really, really appreciate the fact that you use this facility as a great selling tool. So let's get started. We distribute Sim2, as you know, and Perfect Fit is a name they have given their zoom feature within the projection system. But essentially, we are zooming the image within the lens throw we have available to us. So let's give you an example of that. We have Doctor Strange on screen. We're in 16:9 at the moment because we have our masks closed on our masking 2.4 ratio native screen. So we have black bars above and below the image. Now what we're going to do is within the lens of the projector itself, we're going to zoom Doctor Strange out so that he fills the full screen of what we have available to us. So the masks will open, the image will zoom out, it will fill the image area of the screen, but those black bars are going to be projected above and below the screen. So it's going to not get rid of them, but they are still there. But obviously it's important to have dark fronted rooms or dark rooms in general within cinema. So you shouldn't have really any issues in terms of seeing those black bars. It's a really effective way of producing a 2.4 ratio within a cinema setup without having to use an anamorphic lens. Now there are some things that you need to bear in mind. For example, there are pieces of content out there, that have multiple aspect ratios within them. For example, Batman: The Dark Knight and Mission Impossible. It switches between 2.4 ratio and IMAX or 16:9 within the movie. So if you have it zoomed out like you do here, and it switches to a scene within the IMAX element, the image, those black bars, will become illuminated and image will be projected above and below the screen. So just make sure that you, one, demonstrate it to your customer if you can, or use Pulse to demonstrate it, just to manage their expectations, because the last thing you want is a Saturday night, they're sitting there watching Mission Impossible and you get a phone call, why is Tom Cruise on my ceiling and on my wall? So just make sure you are explaining these things to the customer when specifying it. So to calculate these, I have the calculations here, and then we're going to go through an example as well. So you have to perform two calculations for a zoom feature. What you have to do is take the native screen width, so the full width of the screen in its native form, so 2.4 in this instance. So you take that width and you multiply it by the minimum throw ratio that projector has available to it. Make that note. You then take the smaller image, or the 16:9 or 1:7:8 ratio part of that screen, and you take that width and you multiply it by the maximum throw that projector has available to you. And what that will give you is a usable throw range that you can put that projector within. So once those two calculations are performed, like you can see, I've got an example here. So the native screen is 2540 wide. The 1.78 element of it is 1884, and my throw ratio is 1.3 to 2.6. So my calculation is as follows: 2540 times the minimum, 1.3, and that gives me the 3302. the 1884 times the maximum, 2.6, that gives me my throw ratio of, throw distance of 4898. So my usable throw is within those elements. So as long as the projector sits between 3302, lens to screen, and 4898, lens to screen, you will be able to produce both 16:9 and 2.4 ratios using a zoom feature. The next method is anamorphic lenses. Okay, so anamorphic lenses is essentially utilizing the projector's chipset and also an optical correction of the geometry. Some argue that it is a more quality way of doing so. At the end of the day, there's pros and cons to both, but I'm going to give you the facts of how to actually produce it and how to explain it, I suppose, to a customer. Again, I'll go back to it. Using Pulse as a facility to demonstrate this kind of stuff really helps you in your quest to sell these pieces of equipment and understand that you're, well, ensure, I suppose, that your customer understands what it is that you're trying to achieve. So, same example, we've got Dr. Strange showing in a 16:9 or 178 format on a 2.4 native screen with the masks closed. So with anamorphic lenses, the way that I describe it is that black bar element of the screen, in my opinion, is wasted time. That projector is having to produce that black light. So if you was to put the top and the bottom bars together, you could argue it was around about a third of the 27 to 30% of the screen total height is black bar or wasted energy in that respect. So what we do with an anamorphic lens is we are going to illuminate that area of the screen. So I'm going to say to the projector, Mr. Projector, stop wasting your time with the black light top and bottom. Give me active pixels and image, please. So no problem, the projector does so. But Dr. Strange's orange fists here become more oval shaped than they were originally. They were circular, so the geometry has been changed. So the image has been vertically stretched, and also Tony Stark has become a little bit taller than he normally is, which I'm sure he's happy about. But essentially, the geometry of the image is incorrect. But we do have the full light output and full resolution of the projector chipset, which is awesome. So the next stage is the anamorphic lens will come in front of the projector itself. So as that anamorphic lens comes in front, what it will do is correct the geometry that you have made incorrect by the vertical stretch, and left and right of the screen will now be filled, and you will have a correct geometry image in 2.4 ratio. So very, very simple in that respect. Let's go back and do that again. So Doctor Strange image is stretched vertically, illuminating all pixels using all the light output. Lens comes in front, corrects that geometry left and right. The calculations for this are, again, very simple, but unless you've kind of got them in your mind, sometimes it's always good to have a double check with someone. But at the end of the day, we're here to help with these kind of things, but I want to give you these calculations so that you're able to do them on the fly when you're putting together proposals after work, because I know everyone is very busy at all times. So what are the facts? Same facts as we had last time. 254mm native screen width. The 178 ratio part is 1884, and our throw ratio is 1.3 to 2.6. So the calculations for an anamorphic lens is, we are always calculating from the 16:9 part of the screen. The native element is produced by the left and right correction of the anamorphic lens itself. So the only number that we realistically need to put against the throw ratios is the smaller image, or the 1.78 size of the screen that you have. So in this case it's 1884. So we're taking 1884 and we're multiplying it by the minimum throw ratio of 1.3, giving us 2449. We're also taking the 1884 and multiplying it by the maximum throw, which is 4898. Now this, in terms of a usable throw range, you'll notice from the previous slides, actually gives you a wider throw range to use, a bigger throw range to use with an anamorphic lens, which could be a pro in that, say for example, the customer's room's quite short and they want a 2:4 ratio in big screen. Putting an anamorphic lens in there gives you more flexibility in terms of the throw range. Understanding the pros and cons of both methods is really, really useful so that you can kind of cover all bases when specifying the product and making sure that you're putting the right piece of equipment into the project. So The perfect fit pros, or zoom pros in my opinion, are that you can manage more aspect ratios, which is great. You have no additional cost for the lens, so you're not adding more cost to the client's project to put the anamorphic lens in there. The aesthetics of the projector as well, beautiful units. You might not want to put an anamorphic lens in front of it, although I actually think it looks really cool to have that lens in front of it. And also it's space saving. It's not, you've got a bulkhead, for example, in the ceiling. The anamorphic lens means that bulkhead would have to be bigger, and that might not be viable within the project. But the pros for anamorphic lens on the other side is that you use the full brightness of the projector. You're illuminating all of the pixels that you have active within the chipset of the projector. And also you've got more throw range. So if, for example, the client did want a bigger screen, the use of an anamorphic lens would give you more flexibility in the positioning of that projector. Zoom cons here, we've got a limitation of throw range, like I just discussed. Not all the pixels are being used for active image. You're wasting energy in black light that you're producing from the projector itself. Also, IMAX switching. We talked about Tom Cruise. Do we really want him on our ceiling and on our wall? And the image can be visible if the wall isn't dark. I mean, I know that that's not necessarily a con, it's just a decoration choice. But if, say for example, the customer adamantly didn't want to do the room too dark, then you could have an effect there that would mean they couldn't do that. Anamorphic lens cons is there's an additional cost for the lens itself. I mean, you've got to pay for the unit itself. You can manage less aspect ratios in that you have your 16:9s or your 235s or your 240s. But in the WoW world, realistically, it's the most common ratios that we're producing in the cinema anyway. Also, when you do the IMAX switching, if you're watching that Tom Cruise movie with IMAX switching by using your anamorphic lens, that switching still happens. However, you don't notice it as much because the image isn't bleeding above and below the screen. The geometry of the image, however, is incorrect. It's just, I suppose in my opinion, I think that is less noticeable than obviously having a bleed above and below a screen. Aesthetics as well. I mean, do people really want an anamorphic lens on the front of their projector? But I actually think that should be a pro as well, because like I said, it looks really cool. It's look at my lens on the front of my projector. That gives me what I need in terms of a cinema. This is what makes it a cinema, you know. So that could actually be a pro as well. And inevitably, more space is required if you are building a bulkhead or you're putting it into joinery at the back of the room or separate space, something like that. The anamorphic lens does take up more space, so you could see that being a con in the project that you're specifying. So, as again, these are my opinion. This is calculations that I use daily to specify projects for you guys. So I wanted to share this information. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this video. I'm going to be doing a lot more of them. But I really appreciate the time that you've given me, and my email address is on the post, so if you do need any questions answered or you want to ask me some specifics about what we've talked about, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help you. But other than that, I hope you have a really nice day, and thanks again. Cheers.